Welcome to EPG Pathashala. I am K. Rajan, presently working in the Department of History, Pondicherry University. Today the subject is Indian culture and the paper is on archaeology, principles and methods. The module is absolute dating methods exclusive of radiocarbon dating. In the last lecture, I have given all the absolute dating methods and relative dating methods introduction. Among them, I have elaborated the radiocarbon dating methods among the absolute datings. And in this lecture, other than radiocarbon dating, we are going to explain. So there are several absolute dating methods are available in the world, and this can be utilized by the archaeologists for dating their materials. So for understanding the past, we require historical documents with absolute dates. There are several methods that are being followed today to get the date of the historical document or archaeological material. The main objective of the present study to learn about various dating methods, absolute dating methods in the sense followed in the world and the basic techniques involved in it. As I told you in my previous lecture also, if you put all the dating systems, there are only two broad dating systems are available. One is absolute dating system and another is relative dating system. So among the relative dating system, the radioactive process, the chemical process, the geological process and biological process are involved. In that, the radioactive processes contains the radio C14 dating that I have already explained. The remaining datings falls under these three categories, that is chemical, geological and biological. First, that foremost one among them is dendrochronology. That means tree ring analysis. In the sense, this every year one ring forms in the tree. That means in the growth of the tree, one ring forms every year. So they identify this ring, and based on the total number of rings, they have started dating. It is not that much simple. Just you can cut the tree and count the tree rings and date it. But based on the climatic change, the location and the size of the ring, it has all changes. So it has this technology or this methodology is developed by Douglas in 1913, and the method is completed in the year 1929. In the sense, what he has done is he collected all the woods, cut woods from the trees and started preparing a table based on the size of the ring. So when in a particular area, particularly he has used the oak tree. And why he has taken an oak tree means it survives for a longer period of time, and the external climate will not affect much. In the sense that the size of the ring will change according to the climate. In the sense, when you are having a more amount of rainfall, the size of the ring will be bigger or larger. When in a dry zone or desert, the water availability is very less, the size of the ring will go down. So depends upon the soil, depends upon the climate, depends upon the spaces. That means depends upon the typology of the plant, the size of the tree ring changes. That's why they have taken only one type of tree and from one particular climatic zone on which they have created a ring table. So it is one type of approach based on counting the annual growth of rings observable in the cross section of the cut trees, and means only a particular species they cut. In this picture, you could see that there are rings that formed around a stem. So when you cut a tree, you will get quite number of rings, but all the rings are not equal. I assume that the trees that have grown from 2000 to 1000 AD, that will be having different type of rings. From 1000 to and even say another 1000 BC, that will be having different type of rings, because your monsoon changes, climate changes, so the fertility of the soil changes. So like that, when he goes in the back, so each ring has been changes. So he collected all the type of woods that has been utilized in different part of the country, and he prepared a good tree rings table. So when you send a material, and secondly, when he collected a sample from the tree, that means he has collected an organic sample from the tree, and that can be dated. So he knows the size of the ring, a particular size of the ring goes to the particular period. For instance, he has taken a sample from the center of the ring and all the periphery of the ring. So assume that the center of the ring gives about 100 BC, the periphery of the ring gives 200, or you can say that 100 AD. That means there were 200 years gap between these two. 100 BC to 100 AD, we are having 200 years. There may be 200 rings. So this was one of the method which they have followed. Even radiocarbon dating is cross-checked with the dendrochronology. So that way, the dendrochronology has become more important. There are 4 basic requirements for the development of master sequence, what they call the preparation of the tree rings, that is called master tree ring sequences of the thing he prepared. So if you want to prepare your own tree ring sequence from India, assume that if you want to collect samples from one of the Himalayan region, and you can prepare one master sequence. So, but that's why we say that there must be trees that produce clearly defined annual rings. Some of the species, that identification of the ring is very so thin, it is not visible in the naked eye. The growth, the tree growth must be principally depend upon one controlling factor. You should not say one sample from desert, one sample from very monsoon area like a Cherrapunji, and another from a Himalaya, one from the coastal area. So you should be having a one controlling factor, the climatic controlling factor. The wood must be well preserved. So as to you can get the cellular structure. The prehistoric population must have extensive use of wood, particularly in their construction. So when you are taking a sample from the prehistoric site, that you may not get the type of tree today, but it might have completely washed up. So, but if in any prehistoric site, it is the tool or the wood is preserved, then you can take the ring out of it, then you can put it in your master sequence. Archaeologists must keep in mind the following possible interpretation will be very cautious, in the sense the wood may be reused. That means any wood may be used in Pallava times. The same wood can be used in Chola times. But when you are dating that wood, it will go to Pallava times, because it has been used in the Pallava times. And whether the wood is reused or not, you should identify. So therefore, older in date, that the construction in which it was used. That means you might have constructed in the period of 2000, but your door may give the date of 1500. So you have to always see that it is original position. The replacement of old and weaker beams by new one always happens. Sometimes the wood deteriorates. So when they deteriorate, like in the beam, they replace the beam. So then the new beam will give different date. The house may be different, still earlier. So we have to bear this also in mind. So the wood piece collected from the artifacts or furniture may be younger or older than the building material or any other implement. For instance, you know very well, in iron implements, the handle is quite often they change. But iron, that sharp edge or the iron metal piece will be always remain for longer period of time. So the cutting implement will be having different date and that handle will be having different date. This is one problem with the dendrochronology. But irrespective of that, the tree ring analysis, dendrochronology is helping a lot in association with the AMS date and C14 date to data archaeological material. And second one, we are having a fission track. They are alpha recoil, they call it. Then what it is, the principle is that then fission and fusion, the two things are there. Fission means it is a splitting and fusion means joining. It is a fission. Fission means the natural splitting of uranium-238 takes place in atoms present in the obsidian material. That is one black color material. So this glassy material is a volcanic material. So what happened at the time of volcanic takes place in higher temperature, whatever the fission that has taken place before, it has been erased in the sense when the uranium-238 splits, it leaves a race. When the race goes, it makes one track or one scratch on the obsidian material. That is called fission track. At the time of volcanic activities, all the fission tracks will be removed. It will all will be erased. It become plain. So what we call zero clock. But after that, when it is buried in the soil and again the uranium observation takes place, again that erasure, that tracks occurs. Then based on that, they counting the track, they date it. In the sense, these fusion tracks are erased once the mineral is heated above a critical temperature. So when any bead made of semi-precious stone or mineral, that track that contains the mineral will be erased. This sets the clock to zero. However, the fission track again started appearing once the material cools down. The density of uranium-238 fission tracks is proportional to the time elapsed since the sample was last heated. So frequently the material may be heated. So what the date will give means when it was last heated, that date only it will give. So the date is determined by calculating the presence of fission track in the obsidian material. That method is called fission track method. And when you go for another method, what popularly called thermoluminescence method or what we call TL dating. And the TL dating is based on the fact that all the materials, particularly the crystalline material such as ceramic, traps electrons from the surface released by the natural radiation present in the material. The original heating of the energy or firing process in the case of ceramic or brick or terracotta or any other material, soil, would release all the previously stored TL energy. That means that electrons that has been trapped inside that material or inside that object will be released when it has heated. For instance, you take a clay and you prepare a brick and you fire it. When you are firing, all the electrons is trapped inside the brick. It has been released. The clock will become zero. The same way terracotta objects, the same way you can create tiles, the same way any other material made out of the soil. On these trapped electronics, or once the firing is over or the firing is stopped, normally when the pot is broken or the brick is broken, normally it is not fired back. Sometimes the brick is used close to the kiln, so you should not take that sample. You have to take from the wall, where you should normally, when that temperature is exposed to the wall area, you should not take a sample. You try to take a sample where the brick is not exposed to further heat. The same way, normally the pot, when it is broken, it is not fired anymore. It is just simply thrown out of it. So when it is thrown there, it again starts trapping the electrons. These trapped electrons accumulate through the time. When a sample is heated above a critical temperature of 400 to 500 degrees centigrade, the accumulated or the trapped electrons will be released again. They as a light energy. So they will count this one and they will say how many electrons have been trapped, what is the time period it lapsed since it was last heated. So there are two things used. One is it is heat. When you are heating the material, that is called thermo or temperature. Then light energy is passed or released when again you are heating for counting the material. That's why it is called thermoluminescence dating. Thus one can determine by counting this or calculating the accumulated light energy in the material, and they will give the date to that sample. That's why it is called thermoluminescence dating. Normally, when they heat it, and it is called TL dating, but optically you can stimulate. The same light energy can be stimulated. That is called optically stimulated methodology. So what they call OSL dating. Then in the case of next one, that potassium argon method. What is this potassium argon? Potassium is a K and argon is AR. Method was developed by the scientists at the University of California in 1950. It is based upon decay of the radioactive of a rare isotope of potassium, that means K40, into argon gas, that means AR40. That means the potassium has been changed or it has been decayed and into a argon. So the decay takes place at known rate. In that means what, like a radiocarbon dating, in this also having a half-life period. So the half-life of K40 is, just imagine, 1.3 million years, in the sense that argon, the 100% argon will become 50%, 100% potassium will change into argon, or into 50% potassium will change into argon in 101.31 million years. So based on that, they count how much argon is there, how much potassium is there. Based on that, they will date it. So this method may not be very useful for historical period, in the sense means, but however, to date the minerals, to date the rocks, this will be very useful. This method can be used with the rocks that contain no argon gas when they are formed. In the sense, there are different types of minerals are available or rocks are available. The volcanic rocks always helps very well, because during the time of heating, all the argons will be released. So if the argon will be 0, then you can easily count how much potassium has changed into argon. Another one, a method, when the rock is superheated like a volcano, all the accumulated gas, including the argon gas, would be released into the atmosphere. This sets the atomic clock to 0, what they call it 0 clock. When the rocks solidified again after the volcanic activities, radioactive potassium proceed to decay into argon. The argon buildup takes place in the rock at a fixed rate, as I told you that because of this half-life period. So the samples collected from the volcanic flow are heated at a high temperature, and the accumulated argon that is being released is measured. The date is determined based on the amount of argon gas that had accumulated through the radioactive decay of the potassium. This is called potassium argon method. When you go uranium series methods also there, like potassium argon method, this uranium dating method also based on the process of radioactivity, or you can say whereby the radioactive isotope of uranium 238 decays into uranium 235. So the date is determined based on the amount of uranium 235 present in the sample. They date it as a potassium argon method. So it is all based on the radioactive decay. And another method, or we can say that there are several samples are available, but in India, these potassium argon or uranium series or OSL date, nuclide dating methods have been used. For instance, this prehistoric site, for dating a prehistoric site, these type of dating methods are more useful. For instance, that famous Ishampur Paleolithic site was dated as 1.2 million years ago. Then like that, you are having several sites have been dated through this radioactive decay method. And another one is there, electron spin resonance. That means ESR dating. The Dickey and Milky developed this technique in 1980. The electron spin resonance measures radiation inducted or induced defects or the density of trapped electrons in the bone and calcite material. That means the amount of electrons trapped inside the bone, the density of the electrons will be counted and they will date according to this system. And the very recent one, and that too particularly for the Paleolithic site, is called cosmogenic nuclide burial dating. It is one of the recent dating and it has been used in our archaeological sites also. It is one of the recently developed dating system used to date geological samples. In archaeological context, it is more useful to date Paleolithic tools because most of the Paleolithic tools are made of stone. The general concept of cosmogenic nuclide burial dating is that a particular pair of cosmogenic nuclides that are produced at fixed ratios in a particular rock or mineral but having different decay constants could be measured. There are two different decay constants are available within that sample that will be dated. So for instance, this is a site of Athirambakkam excavated by Dr. Shanti Pappu, and he dated this site based on this methodology. For the first time in India, this cosmogenic nuclear dating system is followed and they have dated this site to 1.50 million years ago. So that way our Indian prehistory from 1.32 we went to 1.5. Now Dr. Ota from Archaeological Survey of India is also attempted to date the Tikwada site in Madhya Pradesh. That is also one prehistoric site. It is learned that the date of this Tikwada site goes further back of 1.70 million years ago. That means 20 lakhs years again we have pushed back 20,000 years further. We pushed back our Indian prehistory. So that way, these cosmogenic nuclide date is revolutionizing that our Indian prehistory. Earlier we were starting with 80,000, then move to 1.2 million years, then we moved to 1.3, now we move to 1.5, now we move to 1.7. So in future samples, still it may push our date. So Dr. Shanti Pappu, in his recent excavation at Athrambakam, has sent the sample for cosmogenic nuclide, or that methods he followed, and he has dated to this Athrambakam site to 1.50. And very interestingly, and C has taken all type of dates he utilized for dating the site. In the sense, she has followed this OSL dating also he has taken, and she has taken this cosmogenic date also. So these all put together, and he has dated this site. That is, I think, in the stratigraphy of this prehistoric site, he collected the samples. So this is one of the best site so far dated in Indian context. So this methodology that has been followed by Dr. Shanti Pappu in Athrambakam is the best one with regard to the dating of prehistoric sites. So this is one Acheulean horizon. So that what we call it, all the samples that have collected from the floor of the site, and again it has been dated, and even that tool belongs to that Acheulean period. So she has taken the sample close to that. So again it shows that our Acheulean techniques in India comes to 1.5 million years ago. So before that we are having Abelian technology. So this is the way she has collected the sample. There is several stratigraphy are available, and in the layer 7 she collected this Acheulean material, and on the topmost layer also we are having Acheulean material. So she collected late Acheulean material from the what we call it layer 5. So layer 5, layer 6 and layer 7 yielded the Acheulean material, what she put it as a lower middle Paleolithic tools. So the date which can clearly show that what is the date of lower Paleolithic, what could be the date of middle Paleolithic, what could be the date of post middle Paleolithic times. And see that she got some bones specimen from the excavation. So that has been sent to ESR dating and gives to it is 40 to 50,000 years old or 1,000 years old. And again she get another optical stimulated luminescence dating, that was OSL dating. The sediment sent to Physical Research Laboratory, again it has been dated. And she has dated for paleomagnetic dating also used, or archaeomagnetism. See, Dr. Shanti Pappu has used ESR dating, OSL dating, paleomagnetism, all put together, and he arrived at the conclusion with regard to the date of this site. So this is the best methodology one has to follow in particularly in the prehistoric context. See, Jwalapuram, that is in Kurnool district, again they got tephra deposit. That what we are having, that volcanic activities like was there. So they collected middle Paleolithic tools in the pre and post tephra context or stratigraphy. So once if you date this tephra deposit, you can easily date the date of the middle Paleolithic. So accordingly they have dated this material, and in that way they have dated the middle Paleolithic date also, tools also. This is another same site, and you see the landscape remodeling system which they are using, and they have collected a sample from this site, and it has been dated to 74,000 years ago. So lower Paleolithic date, and we are having middle Paleolithic dates also. We are having upper Paleolithic, and we are having microlithic. So that way the Indian prehistory has been reconstructed. And this post-Tepra, you are having these samples also collected, and middle Paleolithic assemblages have been identified in a stratified layer. So post-Tepra and pre-Tepra deposit gives a important date for Indian prehistory. And this is Jwalapuram, the tools that have been collected from the archaeological context. So the technology involved is a flake plate. In the sense, the core tools technology is superior to this flake blade assemblages. This amino acid method has been used in archaeological dating methods, and this one is developed by Bada. It was developed out of the bone. So this technique depends on cumulative changes in amino acid in bone after animal has died. As long as the organism is alive, the amino acid molecules present in the sample is left-handed form. That means L isomer form, or they call L form, or left-handed form. But after the death, this left-handed form began to change to distinct right-handed form, or D isomers they call it. So this process of change called racemization, that's why it is called aspartic acid racemization. If one knows the racemization rate, that means the moving from left hand to right-handed form, one could able to calculate the date of the bone. This is the method used for dating the bones. And if you go to obsidian hydration method, there it is developed in 1960 by Irving Friedman and Robert L. Smith for age determination. When obsidian material, what we call it, it's a volcanic glass. When obsidian artifacts are buried, they start absorbing water from the soil, and they form a layer called hydration layer. Because of it's a water layer, so we call it as a hydration layer. The thickness of the layer depends upon how long the particular object is buried in the soil. The sample is dated by measuring the thickness of the hydration layer. Based on that, they date the material. So this is another method. And another method is followed is archaeomagnetism, or they call it as a paleomagnetism. When the clay is heated to a critical temperature, that means above 600 degrees centigrade, the iron particles present in the clay align with the present magnetic north, that means current magnetic north of the area, by losing their previous magnetic orientation. So in the sense, every clay will be having its original position. When it is heated, it comes to that current position. That means current, what are the magnetic position is there in the current, that will come to that position. When it is cooled down, the new magnetic alignment of the iron particle is frozen, that means it will stand still in the same position. The sample will preserve this angle of dip, so that is called angle of dip. How far it is moved from the original position, that is called angle of dip, and declination from the time when it was last heated. So by using the known age samples, if you are knowing a sample with the date, you will be knowing the inclination or alignment of that particular magnet. Then you can compare the dip from original one. That the difference between these two will be calculated, or you can say that amount of inclination, amount of dip will be calculated. Based on that, they date the material. And in that way, we are having several dating systems that all these various dating methods such as dendrochronology, amino acid racemization, obsidian hydration, fission track, archaeomagnetism, or other OSL dating, or what they say aspetric racemization. All these methods are developing, and new methods are also coming up, like a cosmogenic nuclide method. So in future, there are scientists are working on several aspects related to this dating methodology. So in future, some more dating methods also may come. So every archaeologist, it is his duty or her duty to keep a track of this scientific development that can be properly utilized in the interpretation of the archaeological material. So all these methods helped in several ways to fix the chronology of the archaeological material, thereby understand the total cultural context or cultural transformation that happened in the past. Thank you.